from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello again to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. And today I have something like really different. First time ever on the show. I have someone who's coming from actually the movie sector. And I have with me Richard today, joining me from the West Coast in the US. Richard, I like the guests to reveal when I have like a surprise. I like them to reveal who are they and what they have worked on. So the stage is all yours.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Richard Rosser, and I work in the TV business, the movie business, well, show business. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I've worked on TV shows including Grey's Anatomy, the MacGyver Reboot, if you all are MacGyver fans. This Is Us, which was a big hit on NBC here in the States, and 24. I don't know if anyone watched 24 back in the 2001 to 2010 era, but it was this zeitgeist show with Kiefer Sutherland as Jack Bauer. And it was a pretty high intensity show. We were blowing something up every week or rolling a car. And so I work as what's called a first assistant director. I'm neither an assistant or a director. I'm the chief organizer, the chief logistician when it comes to a TV show. Once we get a script, I break the script down into all of its thousands of elements, props, wardrobe, background players, stunts, effects, everything. And then I usher that through the production process. And I'm the one who figures out how we're going to shove the 10 pounds of poop in the 4-pound bag and make an episode of TV in 8 days. So that's a little bit about me, Mehmet.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic, Richard. And it's an honor to speak to someone who's behind all these great shows, which they hit here, by the way, in Dubai and in the whole Middle East area. There are huge fans, I would say, of these shows. The thing that, caught my eyes, the first thing when I was preparing for this episode is you have authored recently a book called ChatGPT Simplified Non-Tech Beginners Guide. What, triggered you to write this book actually?
Well, so from my years of working in the entertainment business, I'm a storyteller. I'm fairly technically minded, but that's not where I go to. I don't go to tech, right? When I start thinking about something, I think about the story behind it. And so as I've, and just to give you an update, I'm between shows right now. And so what I do is I go out and I work with entrepreneurs and businesses, and I work at colleges, and I do workshops, seminars, programs, and I've created curricula for colleges and community colleges here in the United States for programs that teach communication through storytelling. And so basically what that is 85% of our communication on a daily basis is through some sort of narrative structure, through some story. And I mean, it may be as simple as just, telling a joke, right? Or explaining to someone why you're late because, there was traffic and it becomes a little bit of a story, right? But that's how we communicate. And for 10,000, 14,000 years, humans have communicated through storytelling. And so over the course of my career working in the film and TV business, I've realized obviously the entertainment value of story, but I've also realized the power of story on an everyday basis for everyone and how we communicate.
Yeah, that's actually this, I was hesitant to ask this question first, or, the question that I will ask now, because storytelling is something important, not only in entertainment, on TV shows, it's even important in business, right? So
Oh,
There's
totally.
a famous say like if you cannot tell it in a story way, someone gonna forget what you have said. So from your experience, like so how the storytelling is a great way to communicate big ideas. Can you give like some examples like from the experience that you have, whether in the TV shows or whether because you said you deal with entrepreneurs as well. So can you highlight a little bit the importance of storytelling?
What I'd actually like to do is I'd like to dive into a real
Sure.
brief talk or discussion about the brain science
Mm-hmm.
behind storytelling. And this will give you and your listeners, viewers, a chance to understand why story works so well and why it's so powerful. Now, Mehmet, have you ever heard of psychological theory called narrative transport?
I heard about it, yes.
Okay,
But maybe if
so
someone didn't, please go ahead and explain it also to us.
narrative transport is a concept that is basically we get sucked in to whatever
Yep.
we're watching or listening to or reading, right? So, for instance, say I'm reading one of my favorite books is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. It's like a 900-page book, but it's all about cathedral building in the 12 and 1300s. And when I'm reading that book, I get sucked in, and everything else just falls away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm reading the book, and I'm really into the characters, and I'm literally following along with them as they're living their life and building cathedrals in the 1200s, 1300s. Meanwhile, my buzzer's gone off, my pizza's burning in the oven. The Amazon guy is here with a package that I have to sign for, and I'm oblivious to it all. That is narrative transport. And so, from a TV or movie standpoint, say for instance 24, people would binge watch the show 24. They would either tape episodes or they would get the DVDs and watch 3, 4, 5 episodes just boom, boom, boom in a row.
Yeah.
It was one of the first binge-worthy shows. And so what happens there is you become immersed in the world of whatever you're, again, watching, reading, listening to. It can happen with music. You're transported when you're at a concert hall and you're listening to an incredible symphony. And that is narrative transport. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why is that important in terms of a concept? Well, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we can harness that brain science. And if we understand how it works, then we can tap into that
Mm-hmm.
and we can use that to our advantage. So if I'm speaking with a crowd, there are certain things that I can do that are going to connect me with that group of folks better than not, right? One of them
Right.
is eye contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I mean, we've all seen speakers that sort of look up and beyond the audience, and
Right.
whether there's a light shining in their eyes or in it, but speakers who do that, they're not taking advantage of that connection point, right? The
Mm-hmm.
connection point of looking folks in the audience in the eye and making eye contact. Then I mean, there's a list of about 10 or 12 things that you can do. Voice modulation,
Mm-hmm.
emotion, tension. There are all sorts of things that we can do to heighten that connection. And there's another philosophical, or it's not philosophical, psychological theory. It's called or term called neural coupling. And what that does is when I'm talking to an audience, I'm talking to them. Say, for instance, I'm talking to an audience of plumbers, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to talk to an audience of plumbers about programming terms, and
Yeah.
okay, Linux and network connections. I mean, that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to talk to the audience about what they're interested in. And I'm there to help solve a problem or a challenge or an issue that they're dealing with. And if I succeed, then boom, we've got narrative transport. And neural coupling is when I'm telling a story or I'm recounting some sort of an event, it touches on shared experience between me and the audience. And so the audience all of a sudden feels like, wow, this guy's been there. He's been where I've been and where I am right now. And so for leaders of businesses and startups, it's great. Storytelling is amazing because it helps you connect with folks on a level that if you're just giving instructions or orders or a to-do list, it can't connect with people. And
Yeah.
so what we're working towards whenever we're talking to someone, and again, it doesn't have to be an audience. It can just be, I mean, literally, it could be you and me sitting at lunch, and I tell you this story about what happened yesterday, and you lean in because, oh, wow, no way. It's it because
Yeah.
it's interesting, right? And there's that shared experience that we have between us.
And how important is, the emotion here? I mean, because you could tell a story, but, like someone will say, hmm, I'm not interested in what you are saying. So how important also to put the emotion side inside that?
Well, it's interesting because when I first contacted you, I said, hey, I listened to some of your podcasts, and do you have any sort of a psychology
Right.
background?
Yes.
And that question is one of the reasons that I asked that, is because you have this instinct way as an interviewer, as a CTO who's interested and curious about all sorts of things. I've listened to, I think, 2 or 3 of your podcasts, and I really enjoy
Thank you.
your shows. And this is why this question is sort of why, because you're going somewhere that I would have gone around the next corner, right?
Right.
Because one of the things that when I'm doing a workshop for folks, I tell them 2 of the most important things with regard to story: emotion and connection.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
That's important.
that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else that we're doing, again, voice modulation, the animation, facial animation, gestures, and motion, everything we're doing when we speak to someone is in service of creating emotion for that story and connecting with the person that we're telling the story to. So
Yeah.
your question's right on.
So just for the sake, I didn't share this before. I never had any course even in psychology, but I read some books.
There you
And
go.
one of the books that I advise everyone, especially because it's like a the CTO show and we talk about tech startups, and read the book called Hooked by Nir Eyal, because this book explains actually how to build something that can hook you, right? And this is
Yes.
what you mentioned before, like how you can suck, the listener, the reader, whoever is watching into that. And there's a way, of course, to do it. Like you need to trigger something that they are interested in, and then they have to come back. So I really advise
So
everyone
true.
to read this book, especially if you are building some app or developing an application. Now, what you mentioned, Richard, at the end about having this mix, do you think AI, because you have written the book about chat GPT, do you
Mhm.
think AI can simulate us humans in doing this? Can we see AI being able to get people hooked in and doing the communications? What's your opinion on this?
Okay, so because I deal with
One
yeah,
disclaimer
sure.
though, I know you are in the show, TV business and movie business, so we need to keep it realistic. It's not
No,
like
no,
a
no.
fantasy kind of thing.
No, no. We're talking about the reality of AI
Exactly.
here on your show, right? We're not going to talk about the ridiculousness of some of the things that we portrayed in the movies or TV. So my approach with AI, and again, I assume that most of the people who are listening to your show are fairly or very technically minded, so they know the difference between AI being an umbrella and then the generative text to text, which is ChatGPT, Bing, Bard, and then
Yep.
we have text to image, which is DALL-E, Midjourney, et cetera, right? So in my mind, and this is again coming from a storyteller's perspective, AI, in terms of generative AI,
Hmm.
is simply a tool. And I
Okay.
know everyone's freaking out right now. And some people are freaking out because they're so excited. And some people are freaking out because they're so anxious and nervous and insecure about this new thing that they don't know anything about, which may take their job or may. So everyone has an opinion, and obviously it's not the same opinion. Some people are worried that it's going to take their job, and other people are excited because they know that they can harness this incredible technology. For me, this technology is really like a calculator or Excel for a mathematician or an
Right.
engineer. It enables a calculator or an Excel program or high-end some sort of a program that helps with formulas like that. It helps engineers create a rocket like SpaceX that can go up into the heavens and drop satellites into orbit. And so for me as a storyteller, the way I view ChatGPT is I can use it to brainstorm.
Hmm.
It's an unbelievable resource from a
It
brainstorming
is.
standpoint, because
It is.
it's like I'm sitting in a room with 14 other people, Einstein and Mark Twain and Shakespeare and Prince, and I mean, all of a sudden I've got all these resources and these viewpoints and opinions and thoughts that go way outside the box, way outside of where I can think on my own. And even if I read a book, Hooked, or what about copywriting, this technology can help me think so far outside the box that it's going to give me ideas that I could never have come up with on my own. Then moving from brainstorming into the research. Now, of course, we know that there are issues with generative AI
Right.
in terms of it going out and having gone through what's called the Common Crawl and billions and billions of pages of websites and PDFs and dissertations and theses, and some have gotten it wrong, right? And that's ultimately why there are instances where there are untruths or
Yeah.
misconceptions in that are generated by AI or generative AI. And
Yeah.
so it's a great research tool, but everyone needs to check their research. I don't know if you saw, there's an article about an attorney here in the States, and he generated a bunch
Yeah.
of cases,
Yeah. I've
went
seen this.
and he went in front of the judge and argued some points based on these cases that he thought were real. Now, whenever, just a tip, whenever I jump into ChatGPT and I start asking it questions about, say, hey, give me examples of this, I then follow up with, are these examples real? And I just do that on my own. But this guy didn't do that for whatever reason, right? So again, this technology has its limitations. So there's brainstorming, then research, then there's organization, right? So I can use this technology to help me outline a workshop, outline a class, outline a script. And then ultimately, I can use the technology for content creation.
Right.
And your original question, remembering back, I don't know when that was, 5 minutes ago, but it was, can AI really duplicate our thought process, or can it write like we write?
Hmm.
And the ultimate answer is kind of, right?
90% maybe.
Right. Or 80, it depends. I have a very distinctive writing style.
Right.
And AI would have to go through like 2 or 3 or 4 of my books in order to understand that. I view writing as sort of poetry and prose and copywriting. When I write, I tend to put words in the middle of the page, and I use sentences that taper off to create shapes on the page. I don't know if you've had a chance to really look at my book, but when you go back and you look at like all the prompts, they're all organized so that there's a long one, a middle one, and a shorter one, or vice versa.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a design freak, and so to me, writing isn't just about the words. It's also about the form and the format, and as well as the content. And so, it's very difficult for computer program to do that as well as write the words like I write them.
Yeah.
And so it's a very interesting question. And one of the things that I've really been talking about lately when I go and I talk to folks who are interested in learning more about AI, but they're freaking out a little bit, is I say, okay, I know that there's a fear out there that AI or ChatGPT is going to just turn all of our communication into mush, right?
Mm.
Because we're going to, it's sort of like, if you think about the burger, like here in America, back in the 50s and 60s, 70s, there were all these mom and pop burger stands, right? And they
Right.
had their own ways of fixing the hamburgers. And, you could go to one and it'd be different from the one, 100 yards away. And then McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's or whatever, they all took over. And now it's McDonald's, and everywhere McDonald's tastes the same. And,
Right.
hey, I'm not a big McDonald's fan, but, it's sort of like, all right, well, I personally, there are other places I'd rather have a burger. And so ultimately, all the burgers taste either like McDonald's or Burger King. And
Right.
there's a possibility that as we all dive into this, as all the masses, I think we're up to 170 million people now have signed up for ChatGPT. 170 million people. And so as those people do, if all those people use the same crappy prompt to write a blog post or an email response or a Twitter post or an Instagram post, yeah, very soon our whole communication style is just going to go bleh. It's going to turn into mush. Now, the people who really care about communicating and are creative about it, right? I mean, you interviewed Jason Dietrich, I think is his name.
Yes.
I love his approach, right? And he talks about how, I can't remember the specific name of what he has, but he has and he doesn't like to call it a disability. It's an ability for him. But if
Right.
you haven't listened to this podcast, this episode, it's fantastic, right? It's I don't know, which number is it? Do you remember off the top of your head?
155,
Right. So
if I'm not mistaken.
So
Yeah.
look, it's Jason Dietrich, but it's a great episode. And he talks about how he views things differently than other people. And that's what allows him to do what he does best. So
Right.
ultimately, the same thing is going to happen with all this generative AI. The people who are really creative, really individualistic, really original, artists, musicians, tech folks who are creating amazing things, SpaceX, that they are going to take this technology, use it as a tool, and harness the possibilities, and they're just going to make incredible stuff. And so that's what I'm all about, which is approaching this technology. And that's why I wrote my book. It's written in everyday language. It's I put a lot of pop cultural references. In fact, one whole chapter about writing prompts is about Alice in Wonderland. So the whole chapter uses
That's
the
interesting.
journey of Alice in Wonderland, going through Wonderland, meeting the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, the Red Queen. It likens our journey exploring and figuring out this crazy new technology, ChatGPT, as though we are Alice in Wonderland. And so what I'm trying to do is I wrote my book so that people can read it and not feel like they're reading a textbook.
Right.
They can read it, and it has just ideas and ideas and ideas. And I use ChatGPT to help me. I came up with a term which is AI enhanced storytelling. And so to me, it's not taking the place of me. I'm using AI, ChatGPT, Bard, or Midjourney, whatever. I'm using it to enhance the message that I'm trying to convey, or the point that I'm trying to convey. And so ultimately, I view this technology as a tool that can help me be more creative in teaching entrepreneurs, business owners, students how to be more productive and more creative in their ways of communicating.
Yeah. So just to add on what you said, this is the way I use ChatGPT and the other AI tools. I know that it would not do the perfect things. Funny enough, I had a discussion with a friend. It said like, are you using it for emails that you want to reply? I said yes, and I'm using it for emails that are pretty much, like kind of standard, right? So, for
Yes.
example, you have a proposal and you want to reply to a proposal. So, yeah, you can use it that way. But if I'm going to propose, for example, I'm not a fan of using it honestly to in something like I want to meet a stranger for the first time and I
Mhm.
want to send him. I'm not a fan of that because
Exactly.
again, it's gonna be very obvious. Of course, like as you said, I can enhance the prompt. You know,
Sure.
uh, maybe for blog. By the way, for blog posts, for articles, sometimes it does pretty good job if you write the right prompt, right? So
Right.
if you give the right prompt, I've tried many times, and now I've learned that how to do the prompt in the proper way. So you have to give ChatGPT a character, a voice, and actually there's an episode that will come about this very soon, of someone who's now leveraging, ChatGPT for her own business. Like she's
Mhm.
relying on ChatGPT for a full, full-fledged business, and there's nothing wrong with that. And she said, I use ChatGPT, and actually I help other people to use ChatGPT. Nothing wrong, but add as you said, Richard. I believe we need to keep adding this personal touch. So
Mhm.
even when I use it, and I'm not hiding anything, even when I use it to share a social media post, I
Mhm.
tried at the beginning to write in my own style because, guys, let us not lie to each other. I'm not a native English speaker, and you would know that Mehmet cannot come up with such, right? But yeah, I use it.
You do very well, I have to say. So,
But I use it because like I want someone to. I have ideas in my mind. I need someone to stick it all together and then go it. And this is Richard. You mentioned something very important, and I want to ask you how they are seeing this from like entrepreneurs and in your business sector, which is the TV and movie. I am. I have my own theory that AI is a tool, as you said, and it I'm not sure. I don't want to say big words now, but I cannot see AI self thinking. I cannot see AI doing reasoning in the way that, AI wakes up in the morning, ChatGPT wakes up in the morning, let me think today what's something new I would do, right? It needs someone to go and prompt it. But at the same time, we see some people talking, hey, in the movie sector, in Hollywood, for example, people are freaking out because they think that someone will replace their jobs. What do you say about that?
oh, it's that. That's a fantastic question. It's we're on day 50 of the writers' strike. So the Writers Guild of America is on
Mm,
strike. I don't know how, if what you get
I
in
heard about
Dubai
it.
about that, right? So so we're on I think today was day 50 of the writers' strike. And so the writers are striking because in a nutshell, because the whole environment has changed. It used to be based on TV shows and movies, and now it's all streaming. And the big three, if you will, you got Apple, Amazon, and Netflix. They don't have a tie to the original what was residuals model. They
Hmm.
basically pay folks, and then they own it. And so the writers who have been writing for their entire careers are used to a certain way of being compensated, and these new streaming services aren't compensating them the way that they're used to be compensating. And so, and they're also one of the main things on the table is the use of AI. And
Hmm.
I have to say, I can't say I don't blame them because they're looking at this new technology and people are saying, oh my gosh, it could write a novel, it could write an essay, and kids are using it in school to write their essays for them. Wait, I used the word write, what, 3 or 4 times right then? And that's what all these people, they do for a living. They write for a living, for
Hmm.
TV. And so the last thing they want is a studio executive saying, hmm, I wonder what would happen if I just type in, you know, create a TV show about 2 people who own an ice cream store, but and next thing you know, he's got a pilot script. And I think the writers are apprehensive because first of all, the chances that that script it's going to be really good are pretty much nil, right? I mean, all of us who have gone and played around with ChatGPT over the last few months have realized it takes quite a bit of work to get ChatGPT to write something that you're 100% satisfied with. And it also, the longer something is, the more of a challenge it is for ChatGPT. It starts sort of going around in circles. It starts using phrases, second, third, and fourth time, and it has limits to the number of words that it can generate.
Right.
And so all of the, it's we're on the verge of a sea change, and for this industry. I mean, other industries, this is the bizarre thing. Other industries like Amazon and some of these services have been using AI in Netflix in terms of helping folks pick what they want to
Right.
watch, right? I
Right.
mean, these companies, Apple, I mean, these companies have been using AI for 10, 15 years. I mean, Siri is all based on AI. GPS, the interface is all based on AI. And so it's interesting that now with this text-to-text generative AI, all of a sudden it's blown up and everyone is excited or free, or nervous about it. When the technology, I mean, AI itself goes back to the mid 1950s, but it's finally gotten to the consumer, and
Mhm.
the consumer sees it as opposed to it just being behind, in a conduit or behind a closed wall or inside a phone, because we don't know. Now everyone understands. Oh, wow, that's AI, but no one knew that 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They just knew their phone was working and could follow voice instructions.
Yeah, so it's like this is what they are calling like when you have a technology and then you democratize it, so it becomes in the hands
Yes.
of everyone. Of course, a lot of, as you said, bizarre, like is the right word, I believe. Weird things start to appear, like, and funny enough, like someone who doesn't have any technical background now, and I'm not a fan of the social media much, but because of the show now I have to do repurposing of my
Sure.
episodes, and I go on Instagram or on TikTok, and I see like people, I'm sure 100%, if you ask them how a computer works, they cannot explain that, but hey, here he is or she is with her mobile or his mobile and talking about chat gpt, and you listen to the tone. Oh my god, these guys must be coming from Apple or Google or Amazon. Oh, come on, guys. But I believe, Richard, and this is my question, that we will reach a place, right, where anything that doesn't require too much reasoning will cease to exist, right? I mean, from
Mhm.
job perspective, and this is where and again here, sometimes people think I'm mixing fantasy with reality, because
Mhm.
I tell them I believe the place where we are going with AI is AI, and I did even a live event about it. So I don't believe in, not 10 years. I said 10 years, but I said I think it's less than this. In 5 years, maybe. I don't believe the world that we know it today in terms of work, jobs would be the
Mhm.
same. Because again, back to your own word about, it's a tool, and a tool mission is to make our lives easier. So in my opinion, we might see AI. What's your take on this? This is my question. We might see AI doing actually all the jobs for us, and for all what we need to do is just to have more, this reasoning thing,
Oh,
and that
God, I
and that
hope
the,
not, right?
but listen,
Oh, wow.
you still need to create entertainment, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I'll have a job, but no one else will.
It's good for you. No, people will have job, but I mean their job will be more in creativity rather than physically doing something. And physically, what I mean physically doing something, for me, replying an email is a physical job.
Yes. Right.
Filling Excel sheets is a physical job, and doing something which can be automated by a machine is a dummy job. Honestly, like
Absolutely.
if a machine can do something that I spend 8 hours per day, and sometimes in other places in the world they spend 12 hours per day to do the same thing, machine will do it. But again, I like
That's
to
so
see
true.
how you are seeing the future from your perspective, Richard.
Well, in my book, I have a quote from Mark Cuban. He's on Shark Tank, right? He's one of these billionaires who has all these companies, and he's very technically minded and technology minded. And his quote is, "You better learn about ChatGPT, or else you're going to be a dinosaur in 3 years." Now, 3 years, 5 years, 6 months.
No one knows. No one knows.
Who knows, right? And also, it's going to hit different industries, different businesses in a different way and at a different speed. But again, I want to go back and just talk to your viewers, listeners. I know some people are watching this, some people are listening to it,
Right. Yeah.
and just stress that. Don't stress. Take a deep breath. Learn
Right.
what you can about this new technology. Learn how you can use it to service what you do and what you do best. Because, Mehmet, you're saying exactly what's going to happen. It's going to take things that we don't like doing, that take a lot of time. It's going to automate mundane tasks. And if those mundane tasks ultimately are not part of the experience that you create for your clients or your audience, whatever you do as your job, your career, your work, then people are going to be glad to let
Right.
AI take that over, right? But what I find, and this is why I'm so passionate about what I've termed AI enhanced storytelling, is that, again, I can go and have a spark of an idea, and I can type that into ChatGPT and say, how can I amplify this? How can I make this more creative? And ChatGPT can help streamline the process of helping me create that. And I also, I'd like to go back to, I think the printing press was invented in 1455, if I have it right. And I'd like to remind everyone, let's take a brief step back into history. All right. So prior to the printing press, communication of stories was done by voice, right? You had people who were storytellers. It was the the oral tradition. And so those people, those stories would be handed down from grandfather to father to grandson and beyond. The stories both about families, but also about cultures and traditions. And so imagine when the printing press came, and all of a sudden, and it didn't happen overnight, there weren't 170 million people who all of a sudden knew how to read. It took a little bit longer, right? In terms of people learning how to read and knowing that they had access to books on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. But the point being, think of all those people who were involved in and with and around the oral tradition: minstrels, jesters, people who told, in town squares. You think they weren't freaking out about this new thing, the printing press, and the
course.
that was coming for their jobs?
Of course.
And yet people still tell stories. People still perform stories. How many types of stories are there? Not Shakespeare has the 7 types of stories. I'm talking about, there's movies, there's animated movies, there's TV shows, there's podcasts. I mean, how many different medium are there for stories now? It's mind-boggling. And so, to me, AI in general, and then ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, whatever, are going to help amplify the possibilities and the creativity that we as creators, entrepreneurs, tech folks who are on the cutting edge of providing customer services and experiences. Oh my gosh, what a time. I mean, this is the Industrial Revolution again, or even bigger. It's the possibilities are incredible. And that's one of the reasons that I love your show, is because you're blending the thought of tech and this presentation of concepts and stories and personal experience. And so that's like I said, I listened to a couple episodes. It was just this afternoon. I was actually doing some work out back at my house, and I was just like, oh man, yes, and so you're bringing this together,
Trying
and
to.
so your audience must just be like, yeah, this is
Hope
fantastic.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so, Richard. By the way, just to your point, and something just came to my mind now, is you mentioned about how the storytelling changed. Because I remember, I used to love, by the way, arts, and I still love arts a lot. And one of the things that they usually used to debate about is theaters, right? So theaters is
Mhm.
one of the oldest things ever, where people used to come and right.
Right.
And when the first cinema came out, they said, theaters will be dead, and it didn't die. And then the TV came out and it didn't die. Then the internet came and it didn't die. Then Netflix came and it didn't die, right? So 100%, like there are things that it will never die, right? Like especially, I'm a believer of human communication. If today, instead of me, having the show, the CTO show with ChatGPT, believe it or not, I'm sure like people will love the first two episodes, and then they will see that ChatGPT actually
Mhm.
is asking the same questions again and again, and it will be in a monotone, way, which they will not like it, right? Well, Richard, like we're coming to the end of the episode today, and I have the
To the
famous
end.
question.
I'm sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I want to make that like longer, but like,
I'm just kidding.
uh, yeah. So I have the famous question. We can do another episode. Don't worry, by the way.
Sounds good.
I have the famous question. What question you wished I asked you, and how you would answer it?
Oh, right. Okay. So I got so excited that I forgot about this question. The question that, um, well, well, you're probably going to ask this anyway, but how folks can get a hold of me so that we
Right.
can really continue forward with this discussion. Because
Sure.
I have to say, Mehmet, I've had such an enjoyable time on your podcast, and we've covered some really interesting ground. So I guess I can't. You really asked some great questions. I can't think
Oh,
of a
thank you.
question that I would have asked.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm
I wish that I'm doing my job well. It's for me, by the way, for people who doesn't know, I never took a training how to be a good interviewer. I never had a media thing. It's a talent I had when I was child. I still remember I used to get the tape recorder. Uh,
right.
Yeah, they were famous things. Yeah, I'm that old. And what I used to do is we used to have the tapes, right? So if you remember the tapes
Oh, the
and
cassette tapes, of
the
course.
cassette tapes, yeah. So and like I hit the record button. My father was angry on me because I was getting the ones which are not empty, which like they have the songs on. And then
Oh,
I was,
you
and I
you
was
tape over where they
exactly.
posted. Right, of
I
course.
was overdoing that, and I was acting as if I have my own show. I can't
Sure.
remember exactly what I was doing, but funny things enough, and I told my dad, I said they should invent something that prevents someone like me to over record, and then actually they did it. So they had this thing that you need actually to break it.
It was a little tab, right.
Exactly,
But I
exactly. So
used to
that's
just take a piece of Scotch tape and put it over that so I can tape over.
yeah, that's really really like yeah. But again, Richard, thank you for reaching out to me. Like, and I think we can take this discussion, for a long time. Um, if someone want to reach out to you, I know there is a link. I will put that in the
Oh,
episode
fantastic. Perfect.
description, and I will put that also on the YouTube description as well. And as usual, if you want to ask Richard any question, like you will be able to reach out to him. You will be able to reach out to me if you have feedback about this episode, and maybe you will say why you have someone like Richard who's from the movie industry. Because guys, what I'm trying to do, technology, people think it's a very like it's a very rigid thing that it cannot be mixed with something else, which I don't
Oh,
believe in. So technology is now, especially with chat
mhm.
gpt open it for everyone. So this is why I had someone from NASA. I had today Richard. Like the day before, I had someone who's in the burnout chief burnout officer. It was Mike,
Right.
and I had like someone who's into the HR also as well. So we are trying to do this mix for a reason. We want technology to not just be seen as, you know, a rigid thing, something that it's boring. Technology is fun, and this is why I have the show, and this is why I call it the CTO show. I know like it's kind of contradictory, but this is why the show is called the CTO show. Thank you very much, Richard, and
Oh,
for the
my
listeners
pleasure.
of you are watching. If also you are interested, like Richard, to come on the show and be a guest with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. You can send me an email. You see my email in the in the podcast description also as well. On YouTube, you can find me. You just type my name in Google, so I can I will come out. And again, until we meet in a new episode, thank you very much, and thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.